Hey, good morning, guys. Welcome back to Wake and Where. I started my day early, so I'm hoping you started your day early as well. It's a great day to be a part of Wake and Aware because we realize all of this stuff is voluntary. It's all optional. It's something that you really have to consider, that none of the things that we do are mandatory. And so we saw this back in the children of Israel as they're called out of Egypt. One of the things that we start to see is it's all optional. When God calls the children of Israel out of Egypt, there's a mixed multitude that goes out. After 10 plagues, there was the only stipulation. You put blood on the posts and you put blood on the top. And then the angel of death would go over the top of your house and miss you. It had nothing to do with race. It had nothing to do with culture. It had everything to do with faith and obedience. So therefore, whoever left out was totally optional. So if I was an Egyptian, I could have put blood on my doorposts and on the top and just involve myself in the feast. If I was Jewish, I could have just said, hey, I'm of the Hebrew nation and I don't want to do this. And so I just want to remind us all, this is optional. One of the things that we want to deal with today is in the 11th and 12th chapter of the book of Exodus. God gives instructions on what to do in order to leave out of the nation of Egypt. And he's trying to take a group of people out to make a nation of them, people who were formerly slaves. And it's only under the imagination that this mixed multitude of people, or mixed multitude of people from all nations, some were probably underprivileged, others were lesser people of Egypt. All of these people were a mixed multitude. And so what we've been taught for years is that, well, the nation of Israel left out of Egypt to form another nation. But the Bible teaches us very clearly in the 12th chapter of Exodus, there was a mixed multitude. When we get to the 20th chapter of Exodus, God says, I am the God who brought you out. And so it really is optional. The option is, do you want to accept God bringing you out or do you want to stay where you are? You got to make a choice, because if you accept God bringing you out, then you also have to accept God, what you go through and what you go to. See, it's really important that we get this option together, because so many people are under the preconceived notion that God is forcing something on you, and he's really not. If you really don't want to leave Egypt, then stay. Oh, imagine if you stayed in Egypt, you would be a slave. You will be working every day for the good of the Egyptian people. Yeah, you will be treated cruelly and you will be treated brutally. And they cried for 400 years asking God, please deliver us, please deliver us. And so when God sends them to deliver, what do? They complain. He opens up the Red Sea. They go across, they rejoice, but then they keep complaining. And so I want to remind you too, just like I remind myself, it is optional. The cross you bear may be tough today. The road may be a struggle. Your life may be uncomfortable. But following after Jesus is an option. Even Jesus turned back to Peter and says, will you leave me too? We'll get to that later. But back to the children of Israel. God is the one who brought them out, and he brought them out by a systematic plan to deliver them out so they can praise and worship him. Many people God has brought out today, but we still don't praise and worship God. The call was, let my people go that they may worship me. But when God frees us from our situations, we become ungrateful. We become disgruntled and we start to complain. Oh, a church another Sunday morning. I don't feel like going. Tithes is just too much. Oh my goodness. Church people just drive me crazy. I got to read the Bible again. Oh my goodness. I'm going through so much. Do you realize something? Following God is not mandatory. It's totally optional. But I would much rather go through hell with God than go through it without him. And so I want to remind you again, in the clearness of your mind, it's not mandatory. Following God really is an option that you take. But without God, where do you go and what do you do? Yeah, there's something to think about. For the nation of Israel started to get out and they started to complain. And they said, you know what? We don't appreciate this leader. And many people have said that about pastors. And this is Pastor Appreciation Month. And people say, I don't like the leader. I don't like the deacons. And they said, we're going to go back. Remember, It was God who opened up the Red Sea. So how are you going to get back across the water? And when you go back, remember God created the 10 plagues to deliver you. So what are you going to go back to? A ruined country? You're going to go back to slavery to them rather than serving a God who loves you. For in Exodus chapter 20 and beyond, God has to remind you, you didn't get yourself out of Egypt. I am the God who brought you out of Egypt and made a great nation out of you. So like us, when you woke up this morning, before you complain about one stitch iota of the coolness of the fall, the wetness of the weather, before you talk about the gas prices and complain about your job, remember God says very clearly, I am the one that brought you out of darkness into this marvelous light. I'm the one, if I were God speaking on his behalf, I'm the one who woke you up this morning and started you on your way. I am the one who brought you through the parents that you find to be so despicable and irritating. And I am the great God who provides not only resources, but a way for you to gain your own wealth. I am the God who's worthy of your praise. But remember, God is not manipulating you, and it is not mandatory. You can stay in your fallen state. Oh, truly, this is optional. You don't have to hang with God if you don't like God. And truly, don't begrudge us who do. For there are many times I don't like God's ways, but I love God's plan. I don't like God's provisions. I wish I had more, but I still can say like David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I don't always like other people that God likes. But I realize something, that the way that God treats me is the way I need to treat them so I can be more like God and not more like me. It is always optional. In the book, he tells us very clearly, the book of Exodus, chapter 12. There's a mixed multitude of people who came out. The mixed multitude gives me an indication that some people from Egypt wanted to be delivered to. And possibly some people who were Hebrew in nationality wanted to stay. But whether you stay or go, remember, you didn't have to leave. It's always an option. You didn't have to praise and worship God. It's an option. You don't have to be saved. You don't have to take communion. You don't have to bear your cross. It is totally up to you. It's optional. But be careful. If you're not a disciple of Christ, then who are you a disciple of? If you're not delivered out of the hand of your oppressor and God will make you a great people, then really, what are you doing? Then you'll probably be a slave to the world. Many people are under the misconception that God is cruel and he does some unusual things and mysterious things you don't understand. Remember, there's a mixed multitude of people who are begging and pleading to get out of their situation. And God can and will deliver those people. And if those people are not you, then just be honest with yourself and say, I don't want to do it. I want to encourage you today. I want you to think clearly in your mind. Do I really want to follow God or not? Make up your mind today. You can't follow me tomorrow because tomorrow we'll start talking about those with a made up mind. And if you have not made up your mind whether you want to follow Christ or not, well, you'll fall down and you'll be confused. The Bible says it like this: a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. And so it's better to be hot or cold rather than to be lukewarm, or God will spit you out. The series of option this week is to lay the options out before you so that you can make a clear choice every day you get up, that regardless of what happens in this world, I will still serve the Lord. I'll be like Naomi was in Ruth. I'm going to stick with you regardless, come what may. The options are clear every moment of the day. Will I serve the devil or will I serve God? Will I serve God's principles or not? Listen, you don't have to. You really don't. But I ask you today, choose ye this day who you will serve. A God who will deliver, or someone else who will just probably condemn you and damn you to another horrible situation. Make a choice. The light is coming on. Do you want to run out with the darkness, or do you want to stand in the light? It's a mixed multitude that's available. But today is a day. Think about it. Make up your mind. The option is yours. The multitude is mixed. It's a lot of people. Are you a part of the group? Are you a part of those people who say, I'll stay back here in Egypt? That's okay. I know God will deliver me. I'll rather stay back here. That's all right. Think about it. Today, make that decision, because tomorrow we're going to launch off and not only spread all of our options out on the table, but I'm going to ask you to choose where you're going to go. Because if you choose to do what you want to do, well, that's a whole nother course all by itself. But repeating the words of Joshua, you choose this day who you'll serve. But as for me and my house, well, you guys know the rest. That's a strong conviction. Choose right now. What you going to do? The options are available.